Our latest in riding apparel is Trixie Trotter, designed by Horsey Haberdashery. The outfit includes a smashing coat for those equally smashing riding parties.
And they're off. Lollapalooza is first out of the gate and rounding the turn well ahead of the rest of the pack. A horse, my kingdom for a horse.
Shakespeare again.
I just can't help it when I'm dressed like this. I feel so theatrical.
Well, I must say, that is a bad habit.
I know, I'm trying to quit.
That's not what I mean. I mean a bad habit, like a riding habit. I mean I like your riding habit. Get it?
Got it.
Good. Well, I guess since we're both dressed like this, then it means we're talking about horses.
That's right. Today on Whiz and Agriculture, we're going to be talking about how horses can run so fast.
Now, let's see. So far, we've seen how cows eat grass, and how we use trees and wood products, and how bugs destroy our crops. But what do horses have to do with agriculture?
Well, you have heard of horse farms, haven't you?
Yes.
And what do you think they grow on a horse farm?
Well, let's see. It's not bananas. It's not cows. It must be horses.
Right. And horses are important agricultural businesses in a lot of different states.
So what kind of horses do you grow on horse farms? Is it cowboy horses or racing horses? Or those big horses that carry wagons?
Well, actually, there's a lot of different kinds of horse farms, just like there are different breeds of horses. When you take into account thoroughbreds and saddlebreds and hackneys and Morgans and Arabians and quarter horses, you've got horse farms in all these different states catering to different breeds. States like Kentucky, New York, Virginia, New Jersey, Florida, Texas, California, Oklahoma, New Mexico, Ohio, Arizona, South Carolina, Tennessee, and Nevada. And that's only the states where horses are really big business. There are pleasure horses and commercial stables in all 50 states.
I hear horses are big business in a lot of foreign countries too, like Canada, Argentina, France, Ireland, England, Australia, and Japan, to name a few. But I'm still not sure I get it. I know that cows provide meat and milk and we have farms for them, but what do horses have to do with agriculture? I mean, we don't eat horses, do we?
Well, actually, that relationship between people and horses goes back way past prehistoric times. And back then, horses were hunted for meat. But things got a lot more interesting once we started taming them. And horses have been a very important part of man's history ever since. Basically, we've used them to plow fields, we've rode horses into battle, and horses were primary transportation while we were exploring the United States. So, when you think of cars and trucks and buses and tractors now do all the jobs that horses used to do, you can see that over the years, people have really come to value horses. But today, they've kind of been replaced a little for the work thing, and we breed horses now to be athletes a lot more than just work.
I never thought about how important horses were to history. But what about horses as athletes? Is this where we find out how horses run so fast?
Well, that's a great question, and I think it's time to find out that and a lot more questions too as we go to the Whiz Kids.
Whiz Kids! Whiz Kids! Whiz Kids, want to know?
How can a horse be an athlete?
Well, they're the Indianapolis Colts.
Seriously, do horses have elbows and knees?
Sure they do. You can see them, can't you?
Do horses have fingers and toes?
Speaking of fingers and toes, do horses bite?
Why don't horses have claws?
Are horses' hooves like a kind of claw?
Do Arabian horses come from Saudi Arabia?
Is that where you find a horse of a different color?
What color?
What is the difference between a walking horse and a trotting horse?
How big are the biggest horses? How small are the smallest horses?
Why should you never look into a gift horse mouth? Why would you want to look into a horse's mouth? What are a horse's night eyes?
How do you get a horse to jump a fence? Why don't trotting horses gallop when they race? I mean it. How can a horse be an athlete? Because they're big and strong and they can run fast.
Gee whiz! Why can they run so fast?
Gee whiz, tough questions. What about it, Dr. Carla? Why shouldn't you look a gift horse in the mouth? And what exactly is a gift horse?
Well, hey, I'm the cow expert. When we talk about horses, I think it's time to consult some horse experts.
Which means it's time to find out.
Where's Mary Alice?
Thanks, Aida. Getting answers to those questions is going to take a lot more than one expert, and it's going to take a lot of very interesting props. Whoa! See what I mean? This is the University of Kentucky, where lots of research is being done on horses by people like Dr. Roberta Dwyer. I believe that between Dr. Dwyer and this guy, we'll be able to answer some of those questions about knees, elbows, fingers, and toes. Dr. Dwyer, do horses have toes, or is their hoof just one gigantic toe?
Well, to answer that, back in thousands of years ago, they actually used to have 4 toes, and they were about the size of a pretty good sized collie. Now, as you can see, horses have grown to be very big, and they really do walk and trot and canter on one big toe or one big finger, and they have the same bones in their lower legs that we have in our fingers and in our toes.
Okay, we know about horse feet and toes, but what about elbows and knees?
Well, horses have elbows and knees just the way people do. In fact, this is where this thoroughbred's elbow is, just the way we have an elbow. So what do you think the 2 bones are down here?
Your arm.
Forearm, right. And horses have a forearm, and they have an ulna, which is where the elbow comes from, and the radius. But we can do this with our arm, but horses don't need to do that because they're galloping and they're moving in a straight motion. So those 2 bones are fused. What do you think this bone is? If this is the elbow,
Your shoulder.
this bone is going up to the shoulder. It's a forearm, and it attaches up to the shoulder blade. Okay, so we've worked this way. Now let's work down this way. Here we've got the radius and the ulna that are fused in the horse. There's a bunch of bones down here, lots of bones that are equivalent to our wrist. So what people actually call the knee on the horse is actually equivalent to a person's wrist. So then we get down to this long bone. There's 1 big bone and 2 little bones on each side. What do you think those are?
Finger bones.
Those are the finger bones that are right across here on your hand. And then we've got a long bone, a short bone, and a pointy bone. And those are actually your finger bones. The bones here, here, and then at the very tip. And so when you say a horse is actually running on his hoof, he's actually running on a toe. Well, you asked about kneecaps, so let's go back and look at the hind leg. Where do you think the kneecap is on the horse?
Right there.
Yep, this big bone right here is the same as our kneecap. So this bone here is which bone on us?
The thigh?
The thigh bone. And that attaches up to the hip. So we've got the thigh bone, the kneecap. What do you think these bones are here?
Your leg.
Your leg, your lower leg down here, your tibia and your fibula. And again, we have a lot of motion down here that horses don't have to have, so those bones are also fused. Down here we get into the ankle, and this bone right here is actually your heel bone, believe it or not. There's the heel bone, and then just like the front leg, we have the bones of the long part of your foot, and then 1, 2, 3 bones of the toes.
Earlier we heard a lot about different breeds of horses. Do all breeds have the same kinds of bones?
Well, let's see. There's standard breds, there's thoroughbreds, there's draft horses, there's ponies. I think that's a question for Dr. Craig Wood, and I think he's out at the Kentucky Horse Park.
I think this means they get to travel. This is the
Kentucky Horse Park, where you can see, meet, and even touch different breeds of horses, like Try and Bell here. To tell us about different breeds of horses, here's another expert from the University of Kentucky, Dr. Craig Wood.
Hi, Alice.
Dr. Wood.
Step down here.
Dr. Wood, I know that Try and Bell here are pure Arabian horses, but what about a thoroughbred horse? Is that the same?
No, Arabian horse is a different breed than a thoroughbred. A purebred Arabian is one that is mated from an Arabian stallion and Arabian mare, and we have the offspring, which would be classified as a purebred Arabian foal. The same would be true of thoroughbreds and quarter horses if they're mated to parents of the same breed. So that's a purebred. The thoroughbred is a different breed of horse, and the Arabian is a different breed, just like a quarter horse is a different breed of horse. Now let's take a look at some different breeds that we're going to see here at the horse park today.
Dr. Craig, the Arabian horses seem much smaller than the thoroughbred horses. What are the largest and the smallest horses?
Well, the largest breed of horse that we have in terms of height and weight would be the draft horse breeds, and the smallest would be the miniature horses. And it just so happens that we have an example of both of those breeds here so that we can show you the size difference between those particular breeds, particularly the draft horse and the miniature horse in terms of height and weight. If you look at that miniature horse that we have right there behind you, that horse is about 35 inches tall and weighs about 150 pounds. If you look back over here at this draft horse, this is a Shire, and he's about 17 hands, 1 inch, and weighs about 2,000 pounds. And we measure horses in hands and refer to them that way instead of inches, like we do people, refer to them in inches. And a hand is equal to about 4 inches. So this horse, when we refer to him as being 17 hands and 1 inch, if we were to talk in terms of inches, that would be about 69 inches.
There are over 150 breeds of horses around the world, all selected over time for specific jobs and athletic ability. One of the oldest breeds is the graceful and powerful Arabian. The Arabian horse is the result of more than 2,000 years of selective breeding. These horses are direct descendants of those that ran wild in the deserts of the Middle East as long ago as 5000 BC. Over time, the Arabian horse has been a part of the glory days of the Egyptian civilization, Greek Empire, and the mighty Roman Empire. Even the Moors, who inhabited Spain in the Middle Ages, chose Arabians as their mounts. These light-statured horses usually weigh less than 1,000 pounds and measure less than 15 hands. Arabians are bred for stamina and today are used mostly for show, racing, and endurance riding. By sharp contrast, the draft horse breeds also have a long history, beginning in Roman times. These powerful animals were developed through the Middle Ages as the mighty steeds for knights in shining armor, and as the strength needed to pull large plows and wagons. Looking at the loads they had to carry, no wonder they were bred to be massive and strong. Most of these breeds originate in the British Isles and Northern Europe. The Shire is a representative of the draft horse breeds and is among the largest. Wow, he stands up to 17 hands and weighs a ton. Look at that beautiful coat with white markings on his face and legs. And speaking of legs, that fine, silky, long hair is called feathering. And you thought we only had feathering on chickens. Two other breeds that gained popularity in the United States are the Clydesdale, famous for their TV commercials, and the Belgian, very popular with American farmers for pulling heavy loads. Well, now let's talk fast. That means the thoroughbred. Boy, they do run so fast. They originated in England. The breed has quite a history associated with royalty as racers, polo horses, hunters, jumpers, and pleasure horses. The thoroughbred stands between 15.1 and 16.2 hands and weighs in between 900 and 1,200 pounds. It's not his superior conformation that makes him a great racehorse, only speed. And the thoroughbred is king in races between 6 furlongs, that is 3/4 of a mile in non-horse terms, and 1.5 miles. And they're off. The quarter horse is the breed with a history etched deep in colonial America. These horses were famous for their bursts of speed through the short, flat stretches of towns and villages. This moderate-sized breed has ancestry with both thoroughbreds and Spanish horses, to make it a very versatile horse, used for racing, ranch work, rodeo, shows, and pleasure riding. Well, we could talk all day on horse breeds, but whatever the need, there is a breed.
What about those horses that race pulling a driver on a two-wheeled cart?
Those horses are standard bred horses, and they either trot or pace. And a trot is one of the natural gaits of a horse, and it's a 2-beat diagonal gait, meaning that if the left hind leg is moving, the right foreleg will be moving with it. So you have 2 beats. And if you're standing out next to the racetrack, you'll hear them go by, and there'll be kind of a dun-dun noise as they go by, signifying 2 beats. Now the pace is a lateral gait, meaning that the legs on the same side move together, and it's also a 2-beat gait. Now we also have 2 other natural gaits of the horse, one being a walk, which is a 4-beat gait, and the other being a canter, which is a 3-beat gait, as they move along at a faster speed than the trot.
It seems like different breeds of horses have different ways of walking and running. Why is that?
Well, the different breeds have been bred to do different types of activities and different types of performance events. Like the American Saddlebred was a horse that was bred to have a nice, easy way of going with some animation. So they selected horses that had that particular gait. The Tennessee Walking Horse was the same way. They wanted a horse that could cover some long distances at a very smooth, easy gait, so they developed a horse that had the running walk. Your thoroughbreds and your quarter horses are basically speed horses that they want to cover the ground over at a fast rate. So they bred horses that were more conducive to running in those types of activities. Your draft horses were selected as work horses. That's why they're so heavy muscled and big boned. And so that's why we have horses that run and do different types of activities, because they've been selected to do that.
Different types of horses excel at different kinds of athletic events. And there's a wide variety of equine athletics, from jumpers, racers, pacers, steeplechasers, to cutting horses, draft horses, and even those we just like to ride. In horses, differences between breeds usually define body types. The weightlifters of the horse world are called draft horses. They are very massive and large beasts, with large, strong, well-defined muscles and large bones. These horses are used for work, like moving heavy objects, pulling plows, hauling timber, and pulling wagons. Some horses need to be able to run so fast and over short periods of time. They are the sprinters of the equine athletes and include thoroughbreds, quarter horses, and paints, to name a few. The thoroughbred has been selected over time to excel at races up to 1 1/2 miles in length. And look at that body type, really graceful and powerful at the same time, a combination of muscle and speed. But the real sprinters of the horse world are quarter horses and paints. They are expected to be working horses on cattle ranches and must be able to react to quick and sudden movements of cattle. Look at their muscle definition, especially the chest muscles, flare and bulge of the thighs, hips, and gaskin. Gaskin? Oh, that's the horse name for calf muscle. But don't expect these horses to run for miles at those breakneck speeds, because they are sprinters. The true endurance athlete of the horse world is the Arabian. By necessity, throughout history, the Arabian has been selected to be ridden over long distances with tremendous stamina. The Arabian body type has very long muscles without a lot of mass or bulge. These marathon endurance horses are very slender, elegant, majestic, but tough and athletic at the same time. So, not all horses run fast, but come in different body shapes and forms, allowing them to excel at a variety of athletic demands.
Now, the galloping horse is obviously going very fast, and that brings us to the big question. Why can a horse run so fast?
Well, Mary Alice, it's partly due to its selection and its conformation, but it's also due to stride frequency and stride length. How far a horse can run during a given stride is important, but also the number of strides that horse can take over a given distance is important.
To show you what an awesome stride Man o' War had, the Kentucky Horse Park has measured it off for us. And now we are going to see just how long a 28-foot stride is. Can you believe it? One small step for a horse, one giant leap for about 6 kids. Gee whiz.
You know,
know, it couldn't have been easy getting such complicated information, Dr. Wood. So how'd you do it?
It's pretty complicated, and developing these formulas and recording this information takes a lot of high-tech equipment. It also takes a lot of other horse experts in biomechanics and physiology.
Uh-oh, I think I may be traveling again. This is the Gluck Equine Research Center at the University of Kentucky, one of the most sophisticated research labs in the world. To tell us about some of the high-tech methods and equipment here, here's another horse expert, Dr. Kent Thompson. How do you know so much about stride, suspension, frequency, and all the things that make horses run fast?
Well, that field of study for us is called biomechanics, and what biomechanics are the study of motion patterns or study of movement in horses. And the way we use that area of study is we usually use horses on the treadmill or outside, and we study the way the limbs move, and we study them at different gaits. We're interested in, for our purposes, why horses break down, and what we try to do is to prevent horses from spraining an ankle, from spraining a knee, similar to how you would sprain a knee, Mary Alice. When you sprain an ankle, what we're trying to do with horses are to find out why horses sprain their ankles.
Can you show us how you do that?
Sure. To do this, we use a high-speed video camcorder, similar to the camcorders which you have at home. Here's a horse trotting on the treadmill, and we've put markers along the horse's legs and some along the back. And with each marker that you see, or each segment that we have, we can define motion patterns throughout the horse's ankle in this case. And what this allows us to do is measure angular accelerations, to measure velocities of the limbs, velocity of a joint as it's changing angle throughout. And that gives us the ability really to define motion patterns in very great detail about the horse as it's moving.
Wow, how does this work?
Well, this is a high-speed treadmill, and we use it to study horses as they're moving along the gaits that they go on. It's simply a big conveyor belt, and the belt is driven, and the horse stands on it and walks on it or trots on it or canters or gallops on it. And we're able to look at the way the horses move while they're on this treadmill. It allows us to look at how the legs move together or how the legs move themselves, individual joints within the legs.
Gee whiz, what if we put a person on the treadmill?
Well, we're going to do that today to help us demonstrate how the treadmill works. We have Dr. Cred Wood, an old friend of yours, and he's going to help us walk and maybe run a little bit on the treadmill and hopefully help compare how he moves and how the treadmill works, and we can compare it to how horses move on it. And we'll start out, we've got Dr. Wood instrumented here with some electrodes in his hands, and that'll help us give an idea of how his heart rate increases as he's walking or running a little bit. Are we ready?
Yep.
And this is a little jog that Dr. Wood's doing, but it actually is a fast walk for a horse. So you can see the difference that we have when a horse is able to walk at this speed, and Craig can barely keep up with the treadmill now. Increase the speed just a little bit here, and we'll see if we can't get Craig to run a little bit faster, maybe get a horse to trot a little. He's still smiling. Yeah. I think that's probably good enough for him to go, but this is, a horse probably is somewhere in between a walk and a trot right now, and you can see that Dr. Wood is really having to extend himself a little bit to keep up with the treadmill. And at this point, we'd cool out Dr. Wood or we'd cool out the horse, so we'd let him cool out at this speed.
I think I can cool out better at a stop.
All right, well, we'll stop you then. Was that good, a little exercise?
Oh, that was good.
Now that we know so much about how a horse can run fast, just how fast can a horse run?
The best place to find that out is at the racetrack.
Oh boy, here we go again. Here we are back at the Kentucky Horse Park, where we are going to see just how fast a horse can run. And to make it interesting, we are going to see how fast some different breeds can run, and how fast our human track runner can run.
And they're off. Our race is between a thoroughbred, paint, and draft horse, plus a human sprinter over a 400-meter distance. The thoroughbred is a real sprinter, finishing first in only 26 seconds at 15 meters per second. In second is the Paint, finishing in 41 seconds at 9.7 meters per second. The Draft Horse is a slow 52 seconds at 7.7 meters per second. And Whiz, our human sprinter, finished third in front of the Draft Horse in 47 seconds at 8.5 meters per second for this 400-meter race. Imagine that. A racehorse could run between 40 and 50 miles per hour.
Wow, 50 miles per hour. That's almost the speed for cars.
That's right. And with research going on at places like the Gluck Center and other institutions that do horse research around the world, someday horses might even run faster.
I think being a horse veterinarian would be pretty cool. Then maybe I could find out why you're not supposed to look a gift horse in the mouth.
I bet Dr. Dwyer could probably help you out with that one because she probably wants to know too. And speaking of Dr. Dwyer, we really need to thank her for helping out on today's show on Whiz in Agriculture, showing us all about those toes and elbows and knees.
And also Dr. Craig Wood with his help with the different breeds of horses.
And Dr. Kent Thompson showing us all that high-tech neat gear at the Gluck Center.
And everybody at Kentucky Horse Park where we saw some tiny horses.
And some big, huge, enormous horses.
And some very fast horses.
And some really strong horses too.
And them hard-working horses.
That's right, buckaroos. And happy trails to you till we see you next time on
Whiz in Agriculture.
Whiz, we're done.